Chris Scouser here with
Matt Howell.
On this special live edition of The First Run, Matt and I are going to go ahead and rev our engines and ride all shiny and chrome to one of our, if not our most anticipated film of 2024. It is the Mad Max Fury Road prequel, Furiosa. It's a dive back into the backstory of Fury Road's ultimate badass with an actor swap out from Charlize. Wow, I love doing these live shows when we're just going to put it all together and kick it out because of timing issues.
You get into your own head, you know?
I do. It's Charlize is swapped out for Anya Taylor-Joy. We'll tell you what's coming up on physical media this upcoming Tuesday. And finally, Matt and I are going to play a round of Rank 'em, which we haven't done in a while. We're just going to go through and rank our, the Mad Max films from 5 to 1. So it's going to be a good, fun time. So zoom. Here's a clip from Furiosa.
Remember me.
You fabulous thing. You crawled out of a pitiless grave deeper than hell. Only one thing's gonna do that for you. Not hope. Hate. No shame in hate. It's one of the great forces of nature.
That's right, Matt. Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy star in Furiosa. As we said, the prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. What's the film all about, Matt?
So as Chris said, it's the backstory, the origin story of Furiosa, Imperator Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron, in Mad Max Fury Road, now played by Anya Taylor-Joy. It's basically the story of how she left the Green Place, how she met Immortan Joe, how she became one of his Imperators, her arrival at the Citadel, and basically that whole story of the three fortresses of the wasteland and how they came to be interconnected and her role in that.
Matt, let me ask you. Fury Road blew our doors off, basically, right? It was our favorite film. We said, well, it was my favorite film of the year when it came out. Mm-hmm. And is now known as basically one of the best action films, if not the best action film, of basically the past, 10, 15 years?
Sure.
Whenever it came out to today. So how did Furiosa work for you? Did we recapture that Fury Road magic? Or not so much? Or...
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say that living up to Fury Road is a hard task for something to do, right? And I think going into this, I expected it to be, no matter how good it was, I was almost positive it wasn't going to live up to Fury Road. And for me, I think that stands. I think it's an enjoyable film. I think it's very solid. It has some incredible action scenes that give me a thrill, that were very close to Fury Road. But in the end, it's just not on the same level. And that's okay. Like, I don't know how you could pull, catch that lightning in a bottle twice. But I think it's an incredibly strong entry into this franchise.
And I'll say, too, I'm not aware of any weak entries in this franchise. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about them when we get to that segment, but when I was thinking about this, putting this together, I was like, I think I have to consider this one of the better franchises of the past, 30, 40 years. Mm-hmm. But we'll talk about that. I am in agreement with you, Matt, in regards to my enjoyment level of Furiosa. Fury Road is... that film feels like it's out of control. Like the film could swerve off into chaos at any moment. And this film felt more like conventional filmmaking to me. It doesn't have the unrelenting grab you by the throat experience that Fury Road does. And I don't think that's a knock against it. Mm-hmm. I don't. It's just a different experience. I think there are touches of what made Fury Road so fantastic and unforgettable here. It doesn't have the same visual pop and wow that Fury Road did, which I noticed. And there are a lot of things in here I enjoyed. I enjoyed Anya Taylor-Joy's take on Furiosa. I will confess to feeling more anguish from Theron's character, though granted she's older, she's had a lot more experience, I guess, right? But I maybe also attribute that a little bit to the pacing of the two films, which they are slightly different here. And it has that feeling of kind of getting the band back together where it's nice to see everyone again and reminisce about what an achievement Fury Road was. And I enjoyed the introduction of all these different things. Like, I loved finding out about Bullet Farm. I love finding out about Gastown and seeing how all that happens. And there's a lot of really great, interesting things here with some really top-notch stunt work and some great effects. Though, well, I will say the effects don't seem as clear and sharp as they did in Fury Road. Mm-hmm. They were a little clunkier here this time, a little dodgier. And independent of that, again, it doesn't have the visual flair that Fury Road does. It replicates the world, but there isn't anything here like that dust storm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And his use of light and the lightning and the color palette, the spectrum of colors from that film is mostly absent here. Mm-hmm. So I'm with Matt. It's still, and it's, I know if I sound kind of measured, it's just when I'm comparing it to the assault that Fury Road was on your senses while watching this. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so to carry the metaphor through and be cheesy, Fury Road, basically when it opens up, it puts the pedal to the floor and stays at the red line the whole way. The action just does not stop, and it's just one thing after another. And this is, as Chris said, a much more traditional film. It's much closer to something like The Road Warrior, where it's telling a very specific story. It's got a lot more characterization in it, where Fury Road, you fill in what you learn about the characters in those rare moments of space, right? And it may be even a space of just a few seconds, whereas this is much more concerned with, it has chapters, it has portions, and I really enjoyed the backstory. I really enjoyed getting all that information, but you know, it's just a completely fundamentally different film. I will say, I think Charlize Theron is much better than Anya Taylor-Joy. I think Anya Taylor-Joy is good, but when you kind of compare the two roles, it's not really up to par, the two performances. But I tell you what, though, I really enjoyed the hell out of watching Chris Hemsworth. I think he just kind of chews up every scene that he's in, and he's a lot of fun in it. But, you know, overall, I think it's a really solid entry. We'll talk about where it lands in the kind of canon of the Mad Max franchise for both of us, but it's a little, weirdly to say, a slightly slower, more contemplative film. And, you know, when you kind of compare it to the nonstop adrenaline drip from Fury Road, it's just not the same.
No, it isn't. But it's still, I think, a lot of fun and definitely, I think, worth checking out in your time. And I'm disappointed too. This thing is not performing well.
Really?
At all.
Right.
And I was really kind of surprised by that. Because the thing about Fury Road is that it really built upon the word of mouth and ended up doing reasonably well.
Right.
But had a big splash afterwards when all the word of mouth finally got up and how great it was. But it's sitting at like $70 million right now. Mm-hmm. And I guess it costs around $168.
Okay.
Probably a little more when you throw in all the advertising and all that stuff too, right? And I'm not sure what to attribute that to. I'm thinking it's streaming. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking that just we've crossed a certain threshold where people are like, well, it's going to be on Max or streaming within like 3 weeks anyway, so why don't I wait?
Right.
And I think that would be a major mistake because, again, much like Fury Road, there is enough here that I think it demands being seen on the biggest, loudest screen you can find.
Yeah.
And I was able to experience it in the Dolby Theater, Matt. And there's a few times when my whole theater rattled. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it was quite the experience. And it still looks fantastic. And it's a really fun and engaging experience. And I hope everybody goes to check it out. I assume it's maybe I don't know. Because there's not a really big, massive film coming out this week. So maybe it'll still be in some of your premium formats for a couple showings.
Yeah.
So I would definitely check that out if you can. What were your thoughts on the FX? Did you notice that kind of any downgrade in FX that I felt?
Maybe not really noticeable, but I did notice that the scenes were just overall smaller. right? Even the big battle sequences and the big chase sequences, for the most part, they were smaller. And I think, the thing about Fury Road is it's so saturated in its color palette. It almost looks unreal. So you almost forgive it for any kind of, wonkiness or kind of, if the effects don't look quite right, you kind of forgive it because it almost seems like it's supposed to be like this legend, this dream, this something that's like on a tapestry somewhere. Whereas this, it's a much more muted color palette and it seems like it's kind of going for a more realistic tone. So then you notice those things a lot more when they don't quite line up 100%.
Fair enough. One thing it does make me want to check out, though, is supposedly there were initially a bunch of plans to expand the Fury Road universe at the time it first came out. So the video game, which I understand is actually pretty good, gets a lot more into Morton Joe and the boys there. Why am I blanking on the...
I know one of them is Rictus, and I forget the name of the other one.
Yeah, but their collective name, not the Wild Boys, the
War Boys.
The War Boys. Jesus Christ, Chris. So sorry. I just got back from vacation and I'm still recovering from that. But yeah, no, it expands upon all of that. And supposedly there's a comic book too that fills in a lot of stuff as well, which I think it makes me want to revisit this entire Fury Road universe, track down those comics, play the video game, and get the full experience that George Miller had originally intended for all of us to see. And I think at one point there was talks of doing a sequel as well, but the focus obviously was to do this prequel instead. And I guess from what I understand, this was supposed to be considered like, at the time, the Animatrix, if you will, of the Fury Road franchise that they kind of expanded instead into a prequel film.
Right.
So it's good. It's good. I rather enjoyed this.
Yeah. What my hopes for the Mad Max, I'm glad we got this, and I know George Miller's getting up there, and if this doesn't perform well, we'll see what happens. But my hope for this, even if it's picked up by somebody else other than George Miller in the future, is we treat this as a series of interconnected stories, whereas Max is like this legend of the wasteland and you're viewing the events not necessarily from his perspective, but as the rest of the characters as a witness. And you don't even have to have the same guy play Max every time. He doesn't even have to have the same characterization every time necessarily. It's that he's like the catalyst and he's like this legendary figure, but the stories are just kind of centered around different things that happen and they don't even have to interconnect. I think that'd be a really cool way to approach this. And I hope they pick that up. I don't know if they will, especially if this thing doesn't do the gangbusters that they were hoping for, but I think there's a lot of potential here that I'm hoping they don't drop.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment entirely, Matt. I'm giving Furiosa an A-.
I'm going to be a little harsher. I'm going to give it a B+. I think really, really solid effort.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's weird because Fury Road was so damn good.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's great. Check it out, folks. Feedback at thefirstrun.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Furiosa. I loved all the backstory. We kind of see the Green Place, where she came from before everything went wrong. We get a little more background on the culture that she came from as well, what drives her to be who she is. There is a introduction of another Imperator. I can't say that word. Imperator, thank you. Who's played by your buddy from one of your favorite films, The Souvenir, Tom Burke. I don't know if you recognized him. So I enjoyed the expansion of her story. Sometimes you can kind of water things down and dull down by revealing more about stuff. But I think it all it does is add to the richness of Fury Road. And that's that. Go ahead, as we said, feedback at thefirstrun.com. We'd love to hear from you. I feel like I'm not done. So I think Anya Taylor-Joy is really good in this. And you just, no, I do, again, well, we both agree that she's not quite as
Yeah, she doesn't
powerful as Theron is.
Yeah, she doesn't have the gravitas of Theron. She plays it much different. She plays it a little more wild-eyed, a little more steely. Whereas, Theron is more kind of wizened and world-weary but dangerous at the same time. Whereas, Joy is a little more out of control. And I know this is stupid to say, but Anya Taylor-Joy's physicality seems very like wispy and willowy. She seems thin. Like she doesn't seem as imposing as Charlize Theron, even though she's, not like a big woman or anything like that. But she does seem like she's physically imposing. Like she occupies the space. And I think she's game. I think she does a good job. But again, just like Fury Road, when you hold her up against that performance, which is like an all-time great action film performance, it just you kind of exist in its shadow, and that's just something she can't get away from. Yeah,
no, that's really well put, Matt. You're right. All right, I think am I ending this? I think we're finally going to end the segment.
I think we're done. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about what's coming up on physical media this upcoming Tuesday. Oh, we're now into June. Not a lot this week. Some 4Ks. That's going to be the bulk of it.
Shank Industries, designers of the world's most advanced defense systems.
I understand the deep emotional reactions to allegations of illegal projects.
A corporation on the brink of disaster.
The Hard Man Project just doesn't work.
Am I to understand that those demonstrators outside might actually have a point? I want every suspect project shut down.
Now, from the hands of a madman.
What's it like to feel stark terror?
An unstoppable weapon has been unleashed.
The ultimate fighting unit. No mercy, no pity, no fear.
Matt, I feel like, and I don't know if it's just nostalgia or age talking, but there was a special time in the 80s and early 90s in regards to straight to kind of DVD, sci-fi, horror, action films.
Sure.
And you can hear it right from when the audio of that clip starts, right? It instantly transports you back in time. And that is... Here, wait, just listen to this. And
Shank Industries.
Stop. There you go. So, anyway, that's Death Machine, released in 1994. It's a poster or a box cover I've seen. God, it's I don't know why it's burned into my mind, but it's basically like a robot metallic claw coming out of water.
Okay.
You've seen it 1,000 times. So Kino Lorber is technically my number 4. So let's go out of order.
4.
It's being released by Kino Lorber. You get the U.S. version, which runs 100 minutes. You get a newly created director's cut at 106 minutes. 2K master from the Inner Positive, and then disc 2 includes the foreign version, which is 122 minutes. But this is also written and directed by Stephen Norrington of Blade fame.
Okay, nice.
With a bunch of other projects. Also the first film to feature Rachel Weisz. This is her first performance in this film. So, and it's basically about a crazy scientist who creates the ultimate fighting machine. It's a cyborg, part human, part machine, and it goes crazy and starts killing a bunch of people. So it includes a bunch of new audio commentaries, new interviews, and some other making of featurettes. So I feel like I saw Death Machine when it came out, but I can't remember a damn thing about it.
Right. Yeah. It's funny about all of those kind of early, mid-90s straight-to-video releases. It's like you look at them and you remember them being like late 80s features, like mid to late 80s, but they're not. They're much more recent than that. It always kind of blows my mind.
Yeah. All right, so that's your number 4. Number 5?
Number 5?
It's going to be Founders Day. A small town Matt is shaken by a series of ominous killings in the days leading up to a heated mayoral election. It's supposed to be more of a satirical horror film, so that's coming up.
Can you hit it from there?
I got 3 shots. That's enough.
Can't argue with a confident man.
Decal is releasing Neon's La Chimera, featuring Isabella Rossellini. Set in 1980s Italy, Arthur is an Englishman with a preternatural ability, Matt, to connect with the land. He finds himself embroiled in the world of Tombaroli?
Okay.
It's spelled Tombaroli. I'm not familiar with that word. Tombaroli?
Nah, I have no idea.
Tomb Raiders who steal Etruscan artifacts. But it's got Isabella Rossellini. Oh, and here's one, family favorite.
That's a number 2.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to swap out my 2 and 1. So let's go. Number 2 is going to be Criterion is releasing in 4K. Terry Gilliam's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's a brand new 4K restoration, supervised and approved by Gilliam. Includes 3 audio commentaries, one with Gilliam, one with Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro, and one with a producer and Hunter S. Thompson. Some deleted scenes, basically all the archival features from the prior Blu-rays and DVDs of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is being released. And then this, Matt, is the family favorite.
There can be only one.
Abel Ferreira's Bad Lieutenant, featuring Harvey Keitel, who is a cop on the, not on the verge of a breakdown, in the midst of a breakdown. He's a crooked cop, pretty nasty drug habit, and he gets assigned the case of a nun who is assaulted. He sees Christ and has a breakdown, basically. And it is one of the more unsettling films you'll see. I think it's the first NC-17 film I ever watched.
Okay.
Was Bad Lieutenant. And it earns that NC-17. Unless if you're a full frontal Harvey Keitel person, then boy, this is the movie for you.
You're in for a treat.
Brand new 4K restoration from the original camera negative is included in this one. Audio commentary by Ferreira and the cinematographer Ken Kelch. And a couple of new interviews and featurettes as well are included in that. Matt, I'm going to give you, here's your Viper Video pick of the week. So head on over to vipervideotampa.com, right? And I'm going to ask you to go this week. I'm doing another Turkish film, Matt. This time it's Turkish Superman.
Okay.
Born out of a Christmas ornament-filled heaven, Turkish Superman fights the mob in order to save the day. After a mysterious prologue in a Christmas tree ornaments-filled starscape, Turkish Clark Kent is told by his parents that he's an alien from space, and that he must leave to accomplish his destiny. They give him a green gem, which he takes to a nearby cave. There, Jor-El, minus half of his front teeth, appears and reveals to Clark that he is Superman. Turksploitation, Matt, is a tongue-in-cheek label given to a great number of Turkish low-budget exploitation films. They're either remakes of or use unauthorized footage from popular foreign films. Produced mainly in the 70s and 80s. So this runs it at a robust 1 hour, 7 minutes. It does include English subtitles. Released in 1979. Turkish Superman. What should we be streaming this week?
So available for your viewing pleasure is The First Omen. It's been released on Hulu. One of the better films so far of the year. A really solid nunsploitation part of the nunsploitation resurgence that we're seeing in 2024, where Nell Tiger-Free is an American nun in an Italian convent, and as we discussed a couple times, that is a bad thing to be. So if you're a nun out there, do not American nun, do not go to an Italian convent. But it's a really solid horror film. You should enjoy it.
Absolutely, man. It actually got me re-interested in the Omen franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a hard thing to do, and it pulled it off. Matt, okay, let's go ahead and wrap up the big show. Oof, we are running tight today.
Lean.
See if we can break 30 minutes. Let's rank our favorite Mad Max films, shall we?
Now we've got a man waiting for sentence. But ain't it the truth? You take your chances with the law. Justice is only a roll of the dice, a flip of the coin, a turn of the wheel.
Matt, that's a clip from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, the third and final Mad Max film to feature Mel Gibson, and also includes, of course, Tina Turner there, which you heard. And I am convinced, Matt, pretty much. I don't know. At first, I was like, we're probably going to have the exact same list. Mm-hmm. But the more I think about it, maybe not. Maybe not. I'm not sure. So I'll start everything off, Matt. I'll give you the ultimate number one. My number 5 is actually going to be the aforementioned Beyond Thunderdome. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing about this franchise. All these films are good.
Yeah, right.
All right, even Thunderdome, which I think a lot of people criticize it, and I'm going to as well, is the subplot or the side plot there with the kids when they show up and all that stuff kind of happen. It does kind of weaken the film for me, but I was thinking about what it is about Thunderdome that's different than Mad Max and then The Road Warrior. And it's hope, right? And it feels like in that film that Max is finally he's grown and he's now past the loss of his family. And this is the shift into the Max that you're talking about basically now, where he's more of an ancillary character and kind of more of a fulcrum or like a trigger for other things to happen all around him. And he becomes more of a hero than almost an anti-hero, which he is kind of in the first 2 films.
Right.
So and I noticed too, and I'm thinking, I'm writing all this down, and then a couple days later, I'm cruising the onlines and on Twitter, and then Jason from Binge Movies, he says the same thing. He says that the difference with Thunderdome is that film is that George Miller has hope now, and he's projecting that towards us. While Fury Road is 20 years later, he's seen where everything has ended up, and he's just upset and furious now and disappointed. And Fury Road is the outgrowth of his disappointment in society. And I agree with that conceptually entirely.
Yeah.
And, while still good, Fury Road's my 5. I'm sorry, Fury Road. Thunderdome is my 5.
Yeah, so I kind of went back and forth between my 4 and 5. I think I'm ultimately going to land that Thunderdome is also my number 5. I think the weakness of Thunderdome is just like Chris said, is when the kids show up, and it does have some great moments. It has one of Chris's all-time favorite 80s soundtrack songs in it.
You can even drop the word soundtrack from that.
Yeah.
One of my all-time... No, in 80s. One of my all-time favorite songs.
Fair enough. And it's got some classic moments. It's got the 2 men enter, 1 man leave, the actual Thunderdome itself, which is just come into common parlance. You say if you say somebody's going into Thunderdome, everybody knows what that means, right? So it's a cultural touchstone in and of itself. But for me, even in those Thunderdome Barter Town sections of the film and Tina Turner's performance, it's got a bit of hokiness to it. It's got a bit of like outsized camp to it, and seems very of its time, right? And
it has that 80s cheesy
exactly
all over it.
Exactly. Whereas I think other entries in the series are arguably timeless. This one feels very, very much like an 80s film, and it's got its charms, and it's fun to watch, and you should watch it if you've never seen it. But taken as a whole, I think it's the weakest entry in the series.
Agreed. Now here, I think 4-3 is where Matt and I are going to argue the most.
Okay.
My number 4 is Road Warrior.
Wow. Okay. Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is, I guess. Though I think there is a little bit, so maybe I am full of it, of Max again kind of showing up to help out and becomes not the central character, but the impetus behind everything, right? And there's something about Road Warrior that has never really connected with me like some of the other films in the franchise have. And it doesn't have the pacing, I think, that some of the other films that are going to come up have. I think that there's a rawness and authenticity to the first film that is, I think, lacking here for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like wow, this first film did really well, much better than we thought it was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kind of amp everything up here, bigger. And for me, bigger is not necessarily always better.
Mm-hmm.
And the twist of the ending, if you really want to call it that, is, I think it's okay. It's fine. I don't know. It just as a whole, as a film, it's still good. It is still good. But there's just something about it that I just never really connected with. Mm-hmm. So that's, I guess, Road Warriors is my 4.
All right. So my number 4, then, I think, as Chris has accurately predicted, is Mad Max, the original entry in this series. And I think the reason that I don't like Mad Max as much is because, one, it's the most tonally different of all of the series. It's very early on in this kind of dystopian world, in so much so that police still exist, of which Mad Max is one, right?
Yeah, it's not really, the first one it's not post-apocalyptic, is it?
No.
It's not until Road Warrior that happens,
right? So, like, society hasn't completely collapsed. It's on its way, right? And things are spiraling out of control, but like I said, the police still exist. So, and Max is one. And it's really, this is the story of Max. This is his version of Furiosa. It's his origin story. It's how he came to be. And it's much more of a conventional, like early 80s, late 70s action film, right? I think it's really cool. I think the story in and of itself kind of gets lost at some points. Like, it's not as compelling, I think, to watch, as far as, because they're telling an actual true narrative, more conventional narrative than some of the later entries are. And while it's laying down the foundation of who Max is, it feels the most separate from what we come to expect from this universe. And it doesn't feel like it quite fits. And that's why I put it at number 4.
Wow. Yeah. That's a horrible selection by you. And I just remember too, another thing about Road Warrior I don't like is I don't really care for the gyro captain guy, Bruce Spence.
Mm-hmm.
It annoys me.
Okay.
It just annoys me.
Fair enough.
Throughout the entire film.
Sure.
All right. So where are we? 3?
Yeah.
3 sounds good. I'm going Furiosa for 3.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to just rewind the show about 15 minutes and you can hear all our thoughts on that. It's a fun prequel. It's an expansion of Fury Road, though it doesn't feel like, for me, like I would always call it DLC for Fury Road. It does feel more fully fleshed out, but it is a more conventional film, while Fury Road was a sweet Christ, what is happening? Am I going to survive this experience?
Right.
So, but yeah, that's my 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'll undercut it as well. That's my 3 as well. So again, go back and listen to it. I think it's a very solid entry. But compared to my last 2 films, it doesn't reach that kind of classic status that I think the last 2 entries do. So let's hear about your incredibly wrong take about why Mad Max is the second best entry in this series.
Because it's the introduction of everything. Mm-hmm. And it is also, I think, the ugliest and the leanest of all the films. Mm-hmm. This is almost like an exploitation film. I feel like I'm almost watching a snuff film when I'm watching Mad Max. It is so kind of dirty. Mm-hmm. And there's a leanness to it that I really enjoy. It's a shoestringy kind of feel budget. Everybody's flying by the seat of their pants, I think, putting this thing together. And there are parts of it where I think it has no right to work as well as it does, but it does. The revving of the engines, the violence, the gang, Toe Cutter, Max's family being killed by this gang, all of this stuff. It's the rawest of all the films and the most, I think, kind of just emotionally unforgiving and unsettling out of all of them. So I think that's why it's the closest to like an exploitation film, I think, in the Mad Max universe.
Sure.
That's why I like it so much.
All right. Well, so I'll tell you why The Road Warrior is the second best film in this franchise. So I think for me, the reason I enjoy it so much is that it lays down the template, right? This is the one that really opens up the idea of the wasteland. It makes things like the later entries possible because it kind of lays out this whole series of just kind of crazy events. Now, granted, the gyrocopter guys is kind of annoying, but I think all of these films have some kind of quirky character that, you know, is
right.
it seems par for the course. And, you know, this sets down the template. This is a story told by the feral kid. It's not about Max. He's just this force of nature that shows up and then leaves. The, you know, chase scenes and the action scenes are, I think, you know, the way they're shot and the way they're presented are absolutely fantastic. They are the quintessential set of what you expect from these films. And it's like a myth, right? It's a legend. It's a fairy tale. And it's not important who Max is. It's not important who the Lord Humongous is. He's just this guy that's in the wasteland, and he looks cool and he's scary and he's got all this stuff, but all of this kind of mythic sweep is there. And I think that's what makes it just such a stone cold classic. Whereas I think Max is a solid film. It really is, but it's more conventional. Whereas this is like what set the foundation that they built something like Fury Road on.
I can't disagree with your assessment. I just, I guess the levels of enjoyment
Sure.
of the films are just different there. And you're right. I need to apologize and retract my statement about the kind of Thunderdome setting that up. You're right. It is, which is disappointing that it's Road Warrior that sets up the mythos of the Mad Max character who drifts in from town to town, right, and gets involved with everything. I did rewatch all of them in anticipation of Furiosa because I bought the 4K set. I was kicking myself, Matt, because first I bought Fury Road because I said, well, let me get that one in 4K, and I got it, and then I'm like, you know what, this is stupid, because I buy the Fury Road 4K for like $24,
right?
And I'm like, it's on sale for $60, so now basically for like $10 each, I could get the other 3 films in 4K. Why don't I just do that?
Yeah, right.
So I return Fury Road and I buy the set. 3 days later, the set drops from 60 to 40.
I hate that shit. I hate it.
What happened, though, luckily for me, is my box set was damaged.
Oh,
it was
okay.
actually cracked, like
Okay.
in 3 places.
All right.
So I asked if I could return it, and they said yes.
Okay.
So I got this all through Amazon. So I returned it, and then I bought the $40 set, and I was very, very excited. That ended up saving my $20.
All right. That's a score on your. Good job.
Look at me. And all the transfers look great. They sound great. I think this is the best Thunderdome and Road Warrior I think I've ever looked. Mad Max looks really solid as well. And I know there's some concerns people have with the Fury Road 4K, but it looks good. Some of the flames and the flashes of like the white light and stuff, they're pretty intense in 4K. But overall, it does really work exceptionally well with that Dolby Vision. Matt, what is number 1?
Well, it should come as no surprise if people have heard us gush about this film for however long, but it's Fury Road. It's Chris. Why is it your number 1?
Again, just like we said, it is one of the most intense action thrill rides you will ever see. And it is, as I said, the film just feels almost dangerous while you're watching it. And it looks fantastic. The effects are all top notch. The use of color in this film is fantastic. The performances are all top shelf. Everything it's, as Matt said at the opening of the show, it's lightning in a bottle. Everything works perfectly, and you're in for an intense thrill ride.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this film has absolutely no right to work as well as it does. It's the late sequel to a cult underground film where the actors were on record before saying they didn't know what they were doing. Like, it was basically nonsensical. They all hated each other. The plot is basically paper thin. I mean, there's basically, it's basically a chase movie, and that's all there is to it. But every second of it is just so freaking good, and that it's just, between the practical effects and the saturated color palette and the performances, it's just solid, you know, from beginning to end. And it's literally in the pantheon of like greatest action films ever made.
Absolutely. The designs of all the cars, the war boys. I mean, every little touch, every little thing, it's just pitch perfect. So there you go. Matt, I feel like we should try and... How do we do a letterbox for this? How do we reconcile our differences here?
I don't know.
So we're good at 5 with Thunderdome.
Right. And we're good at number 1.
Yeah.
And we're good at 3.
Well, is that what gets impacted then? Is it...
So if we're going to insist that Mad Max is number 2, there's no way Furiosa is better than Road Warrior for me. It would have to...
So what if our consensus is Thunderdome, Furiosa, and I will acquiesce to you...
Well, that's a first.
To Road Warrior, because, as you said so eloquently, it sets the template for who the character is going to be going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I am comfortable going for our letterbox list, Thunderdome, Furiosa, Mad Max, Road Warrior, Fury Road.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that works
Are
for
you
me.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't agree with it entirely, but in the interest of...
keeping the peace?
Yes, of friendship. So over the next couple of days, I will update a First Run Fury Road list for that. And... yeah, I guess that'll have to be.
All right.
Thunderdome. So then we'd go Furiosa, Mad Max, Road Warrior. Okay. FR. All right. There it is, folks. How'd you rank the Mad Max franchise? How'd you rank it too, Matt, against some of the other franchises? I mean, your Mission Impossibles, your John Wicks, your I don't know, name one. It's I don't think it gets the due it deserves.
Yeah, I agree. I think if out of everything listed, I think for me, the only action franchise that has as high quality from beginning to end is John Wick. I think that's the one that's the contender for like every entry's at least solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's good. Feedback at thefirstrun.com. Let us know your thoughts. Matt, what's coming up on the big show next week? I am really excited about this, and I don't know what that means about what it says about me.
So, something called In a Violent Nature. I'm unfamiliar. Why don't you tell me a little bit of what that's about?
It's, I believe, an IFC Shudder original that is going to be in the theaters, and it is a serial killer film, basically like a Jason movie, from the point of view of the killer.
Oh, okay. So I saw the trailer for that, and I'm really on board for this. But I didn't realize that was what it was called. So now I'm really excited.
And it is supposed to be just if you're a gorehound, supposedly this is going to be the film for you. It's supposed to be viscerally, just deeply unsettling.
Okay.
So, which is kind of, it's our bread and butter around here sometimes. So. Looking forward to that. In the meantime, you can check us out at thefirstrun.com. You can find archives of all the old shows, the report card, and there's a player. You can just hit play, and you can start listening to episodes and more. Head on over to YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Do a search for The First Run. Scroll. Eventually, you'll find us. Head on over to Apple Podcasts. Give us a review. It'll help other people find the show. Screen Run Episode 2 is live right now as well. So you can catch the first 2 episodes of Season 4 when me and the Lady Juan are running down the Body Snatchers franchise. We also do a couple diversions just to kind of fill up the catalog a bit, which includes The Faculty and the Puppet Masters, which I think is that 95? Either way, you can check that out at screenrun.fun. And Matt's coming up as a guest on there as well.
Oh, exciting.
So that'll be, I think that's the next episode, actually, which will be in about a week or so.
Yeah, okay.
So that was a good talk. All right, that's going to be it, folks. We're going to go ahead, take an extended break. I love you all very much. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon. And thank you.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!